Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sam Beast YouTube channel. My name is David Foxen, and as always, before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Today we are doing our final, this is it, this is the last one in our hardware asset management webinar series. This has been going on for 14, 15 webinars, including little mini ones, and we've reached the end of it. This is the last one. Hardware Asset Management Maturity Explained. Hopefully over Christmas, the plan is to actually put all of the webinars together in one big video so that you've got 15 plus hours worth of ham webinars all in one. I'll be going out over the Christmas time when it's all quiet and when people aren't really at work anyway. So, right, let's get cracking then. And let's first of all look at what is Hardware Asset Management Maturity. Maturity is when you're looking at how effective your hardware asset management function or practice actually is. This ranges from things like, going from firefighting when you're super reactive, haven't got a clue what's going on, no record of all your hardware assets, no processes, no policies, no controls. It's just an absolute free-for-all, right the way through to it being optimized, automated. You know where everything is, you know your risks, you know your spend, you're optimizing, you're smashing it, basically. So maturity is looking at where you are within that organization. It covers the processes, governance, technologies, data sets, and also the outputs of your hardware asset management function. It looks at whether they're actually providing any value, whether your policies and processes that you've written down are actually being followed and are not just pixels on the screen, and just basically make sure that your hardware asset management function is doing what it should be in relation to the maturity levels. Like we said, there are different levels of maturity. We'll go over those in a slide in a second, but yeah, they basically range from like the core basic ones all the way through to dynamic. There's different phrases you can use for different maturity models that are out there. We'll just use the one that we've got here, but other maturity assessments might, change the terminology of it, but they basically mean the same thing. The levels of maturity, they pretty much mean the same thing anyway. They just might have different terminologies on them. And the overall aim then of hardware asset management maturity is to reach the highest level that you want to within your organization. And I say that you want to within your organization because you may have made the strategic decision that actually you don't need that top end ham function. You're happy with the one just below that. You don't need to go gung-ho and go all out for that top one. And there may be, legitimate reasons for that being the case. But other organizations want to achieve the best that they can do. That will be the dynamic. They want automated, optimized, amazing hardware asset management within their organization. And that's fine too. There's no right or wrong answer. It all depends on what the overall goals and objectives are of your hardware asset management function and what you want to get out of hardware asset management when you're implementing it as part of IT asset management. It also describes how far along hardware asset management is in turning from that reactive administrative function into a strategic, optimized hardware asset management function, or the desired level that you want when you're building out hardware asset management maturity or looking at the scale of hardware asset management maturity. So why should you care about maturity? And full disclosure, I fully get why the whole maturity model, maturity assessments and stuff like that have kind of dropped off a bit, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years. It used to be a big thing that you could put your hat on and say we are X amount mature from an ITAM standpoint, a ham, SAM standpoint, etc. Gap analysis and stuff like that seem to have kind of taken over a bit, whereby people would rather have that actionable, tangible data that they can go after and fix, which is what a gap analysis provides. But you should still care about your hardware asset maturity. And here's why. It's a great place to start benchmarking where you are against the maturity levels and potentially where you are against your competitors. It helps you with your strategy planning and looking for those opportunities so that you can evolve ham. You can build up a strategy that helps you achieve that next level of maturity and help you really get the most out of hardware asset management within your organization. It also supports best practice compliance. A lot of the maturity elements of hardware asset management also looks at regulations, laws and stuff. I'm talking about e-waste and ITADs and data security, data protection, etc. So caring about your ham maturity also does help, with the compliance element of it, with making sure that you are following local laws, that you are compliant in your hardware asset management function, and that you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be, and that your third-party providers also, when I'm thinking about ITAD and the people that you're buying hardware from, are also following best practice compliance procedures. And finally, you may want to be best in class. That's another really good reason as to why people care about maturity, is because they want to show senior management and leadership that their ITAM function is up there with the elites. It is a really good, solid hardware asset management function that's going above and beyond what other organizations are doing for HAM. And maturity assessments help you validate that and help give you that ammo to speak to your senior leadership team and say, yeah, we're doing all right. We're up there. We're at dynamic. There's not really much more we can do at the moment unless they invent another level of maturity. But then the challenge is keeping and staying in that dynamic class of maturity rather than dropping down as you get a bit complacent. You feel like you've done everything. No, then the challenge is making sure that you're keeping up at that best in class, at that top level of hardware asset management maturity. The business impact on looking at your hardware asset management maturity. Do you know what? Honestly, when you're in a low maturity hardware asset management function, it honestly sometimes feels like you are swimming upstream or wading through glue or gloop or gunge, whatever, with like a backpack that's full of weights or bricks or something. It feels like such a struggle to get even the most basic of win when you're in a low HAM maturity function. The financial impact is there as well. Over purchasing, buying hardware because you have no visibility on what's actually out there and what needs to be replaced, because you haven't got any hardware lifecycle dates in there. You've got no warranty information in there. You're just guessing. A user's coming to you and saying, hey, my device is slow. And you're just going, all right, well, then we'll buy you another one. I guess it's slow. Have another one. Not even looking at the warranty information, not even looking at the fact it's still got 2 years worth of life left in it and it could be repaired for a really cheap price, Things like that. Underutilized device as well. A lot of shelfware when you've got low HAM maturity, not only in stock rooms, but with, line managers taking equipment off of levers and then not giving them back to IT and having them just sitting there, depreciating, not bringing your organization any value whatsoever. Unplanned spending as well, because you haven't got your hardware asset management process in place. You've not got your life cycle data and dates in your asset management database, so you never know when you're going to need to be buying equipment that's come end of life or has reached the end of its warranty. And that's a financial impact of having a low hardware asset management maturity level. You've also then got the risk and compliance element of it, lost and stolen devices, no clear chain of custody, no informing, information security that the device has gone missing, no informing ITAM that the device has gone missing. You've also then got your unplanned spend, so last minute purchases at high prices because you are not aware of what's due for hardware refresh. You're not aware of what's reaching the end of its warranty, end of its internal life with you, end of extended support, etc. So then you're scrambling around, just basically trying to find whatever model you can get ordered and delivered to you within a quick time frame, because you've got users waiting and users that may not even have a working device. You've also then got your risk and compliance, lost or stolen, no clear chain of custody. Who are you informing when something's being lost or stolen? Are you letting InfoSec know? To ITAM aware of this? Are the cost center owners aware of this because they're going to have to buy a new one to replace the device that's been lost or stolen? Are you remotely locking the device? If you have low HAM maturity, these are probably considerations that aren't even part of the process if you have anything even written down. Audit failures as well, unable to provide proof of ownership, unable to look at the warranty information and the life cycle stage as that hardware asset goes throughout its life within your organization, as I've just whacked my elbow on my desk. As the asset's going through the life cycle, you're not going to know where it is when you have a low HAM maturity threshold. And data breaches. This is probably the biggest worry and scare for ITAM people and InfoSec people. It's when you've got poor or a complete lack of end of life IT asset disposition handling, no secure disposal of assets. You have no idea where the data is going. It's getting processed somewhere by someone at some point. You're getting no destruction references. You're getting no Blanco or equivalent references. Who knows where that data's going? Who knows where it's going? Could end up in landfill, unwiped, the hard drive not destroyed. someone could get their hands on it. There's just complete operational inefficiencies. Like I said, when I started this slide, you honestly feel like you're going through your ham life with a backpack on that's full of rocks, that's full of weights, and you're wading through thick mud and thick sludge, trying to make any kind of progress or get any kind of win within your hardware asset management function. And because of that, you've got no visibility. You're giving slow response times as well. So when you're getting requests coming about hardware, because you're scrambling around trying to find the information, you're not able to provide a good response in a decent SLA, because you're having to go and do manual firefighting, manual finding out about the asset. It's not in your AMDB. You've not got any of your life cycle, procurement, user, ownership. You've got none of that information, and it is horrible. You almost feel helpless. And then that kind of then rolls into, you're constantly firefighting. You're never on the front foot. You're always on the back foot, always reacting, always trying to put out fires when you've got no water left. And it's really difficult. It's really hard. And a knock-on effect of all of this is that you really don't win any friends from an ITAM standpoint. You become a bad name within the organization. No, don't bother contacting them. They can't get us the hardware on time. The hardware they provided was broken. It didn't work. I've had this same laptop for 6 years. No point in asking them, because you're not going to get anything new. That kind of thing. You provide poor service, because potentially through no fault of your own, because you've not got any of the data or information yourself, but you're providing a poor service, means you get giving out delays. Those delays are then being felt by your end users and your customers. And then it just builds frustration for you as an ITAM professional, because you've not got the processes and the data that you need, but then also the end user that's having to go through this lack of process and really finding it hard. We move on then to a more mature ham function, somewhere that I much prefer to be, and the financial impact completely flips. You've got reduced costs, you've got predictable spend, you've got ROI tracking. Reduced costs because you're optimizing your fleet, you're doing internal audits for inactive hardware, you're getting it back, not allowing users to have two of the same asset type. You know your spending habits because you mapped out and forecasted your hardware refresh rates, because you have them in your asset management database. You've been working hard. You've got your warranty expiry dates. You've got your scheduled retirement warranty dates. You know what needs to be refreshed and replaced. And you may also even be proactive in getting all of those repairs sorted out as well, which is another big win, and also helps you manage that spend and make sure that you're not spending money that you didn't budget for or didn't know that was coming. You can also factor in your total cost of ownership here, because you can look at all of the procurement costs, additional support, and also the repair costs, which gives you even more visibility on what your estate looks like, what all of your equipment looks like, what all of your assets look like. And it just gives you more control, more visibility, and you just a better ham function. Basically, you can provide a much better service, better ham function. It's better all round. You're then way more compliant from a risk and compliance standpoint. You've got accurate asset records following the life cycle in your asset management database. It's being updated and maintained on a daily basis. You're fully aware of all of the devices that you're sending off for ITAD or that you're bringing back in. They're being securely wiped. They're being properly disposed of, relating to your local laws for e-waste and data destruction. And you can support ISO, SOX, GDPR, etc., because your processes are way more mature and have thought about all of these things while you've been creating them. Also supports the operational efficiency. We're talking about live data feeds going into your asset management database and your CMDB. I prefer the AMDB, obviously, because I'm in ITAM. I'm not a configuration manager. But you can also have the feeds going into your CMDB, which also naturally does help the AMDB as well. But also data integration with your ITSM tools, security, finance, getting all of that information, less manual work for the ITAM team in providing data imports and mapping data and manually adding, individual records, etc. You've also got more automation with automated discovery, workflows, integration, again, cutting down that manual effort, giving ITAM the greatest gift of all, which is time. And that is a really cringy thing that I used to say when I did keynote speaking. But yeah, ITAM can give the business the greatest gift of all, time. And it's true in this respect, right? When you've got a mature ham function and things doing it for you with whether that's automated workflows in your ITSM tool, whether that's inventory tools, or whether that's even the use of AI, you are giving your ITAM team time back, which is an incredible gift and thing to be able to do, because then you can focus on more strategic things or things that are causing you problems elsewhere. Employee satisfaction. When you've got a more mature hardware asset management or ITAM function, you've gone from annoying people, frustrating people, causing delays, potentially causing them to miss deadlines, to making friends and influencing people. You're giving the right equipment at the right time. You're doing proactive hardware refreshing. The model and spec that you provided is sufficient for what they need to do for their jobs. Perfect. The one thing I will say is whenever you've got a mature ham function, it gets to that old IT saying, right? If you only ever get spoken to in IT when something goes wrong, you never get spoken to when things go well. When you are providing the right equipment out to users and you are managing the life cycle, a user never turns around to you and goes, do you know what? You've given me a really good laptop that does exactly what I need to do my job. Thank you, ITAM. You never hear that. But of course you're going to hear that if you provide the wrong hardware and equipment. So it's a thankless task sometimes, but at least as long as you're not hearing from the users moaning about their equipment, you've done the right thing. And as long as you can provide that good customer service in a speedy SLA time, you're definitely going to make a lot more friends than you're going to make enemies, that's for sure. And obviously, from a ham standpoint, also that standardization, that's always a really good one when you're maturing a hardware asset management function, is getting that standard hardware model, vendors, spec, etc., even user profiling based on that user's team or division. And then finally, that strategic value. You're looking at how you're supporting social and corporate responsibilities. You're looking at how you're supporting environmental responsibilities, green IT, green software, etc. FinOps as well is another big thing where when you've got an increased ham maturity that you can support, and just business credibility. ITAM becomes a well-known name in the organization for all the right reasons, not for wrong reasons where they're delays or not giving hardware when they should, or giving out broken equipment, or not getting the data destruction references, something like that. That's when hardware asset management suddenly becomes a good friend and a business enabler rather than something that's seen as a pain and something that you don't really want to engage in. So we mentioned that there are a lot of different hardware asset management maturity levels that you can go through. We'll go through the ones that we typically use. And they go left to right, by the way. So basic is obviously the first one. No processes or policies in place. Unknown hardware inventory coverage percentage. You should be aiming for 95 and above. Hardware inventory coverage percentage. No lifecycle management. Unknown risks. No ham strategy. No ham awareness. Doesn't get much worse, to be honest with you. Moving on to standardize. There's some form of process and policy in place. Data still untrustworthy. Limited but some lifecycle management controls, limited integration with other inventory tools, but you do have some, and it's better than basic. And ham starting to be known within the organization. Processes are documented and implemented, but not yet optimized. 85% we typically go for when looking at this inventory level, looking at this maturity level from an inventory standpoint. 85% inventory coverage in your AMDB. Full lifecycle management controls, mostly integrated with other sources, and some automation starting to get in place. I should say being rationalized is no mean feat. That is definitely something to be celebrated as well, because if you're going from basic to rationalized, that is still a huge jump in your hardware asset management maturity and your ham journey's progress. And finally, dynamic. This is the creme de la creme of maturity levels. Fully documented, tested, implemented, optimized, everything to do with your processes. 95 to 98+% inventory coverage in your AMDB. Near real-time data. ham is used as part of the IT strategy and seen as a strategic partner. You're probably more likely to relate that to ITAM rather than ham. Full risk management, full lifecycle management, full ham awareness. It is a known thing without the organization. It is loved, it is embraced, it is followed. Everyone gets involved in hardware asset management. Feel free to take a screen grab of this if you want to use it going into your own organization. This is just my interpretation of it from a hardware asset management standpoint, but it's based on the same fundamentals as a lot of the other maturity assessments that are out there. Obviously, I should say that there is the on-demand maturity assessment that you can do through licenseware, which I helped create on the hardware asset management side of things. And of course, there will be a link to that in the description box below. Well worth doing. It's a subscription thing. You can do it once, you can do it next year, you can keep doing it and see how your maturity evolves. End of sales pitch. We spent a lot of time building it. I think it's great. Would love for you guys to take advantage of it as well. Have a screen grab, have a look. Maybe see where you think that your organization's ham fits in there. As I mentioned before, you may not want to be dynamic, and that's perfectly okay. If you have agreed within your organization that rationalized is your aim due to bandwidth issues, technology issues, development, resourcing issues, whatever, then go for rationalized. That's still better than basic. It still has a lot of control in there. Just obviously be aware of the gaps that you would need to fill to get to dynamic, like 85% inventory coverage. As long as you know the gaps that aren't there, the extra 15%, by all means, aim for rationalized. There's nothing stopping you from just saying that's fine for us, that's our peak. You might be a small organization, an IT manager that's going out. There's no harm in just focusing on rationalized. Not everything has to be amazing and automated and using AI and stuff like that. Let's dig a bit deeper then into the basic element of ham maturity. This is the first step. Obviously, a clear sign, it's in red, that action needs to be taken. You've got no control, awareness, or visibility, no plan, no life cycle management, no ham understanding or awareness within the organization. It can't get much worse. You are so reactive, it is unreal. You've got no good data sources. Your ITAM team are flapping about trying to it probably isn't even an ITAM team that have been in place, because if there's an ITAM team in place and you're in basic, I'd be looking at the personnel in that ITAM team to go, should be really a bit higher than that if you've got an ITAM team. But you typically find this when you go into an organization that's never had hardware asset management or ITAM in place before. You then move on to your standardized, some form of process is written down or is being followed, but hasn't just been approved or communicated to the business. The amount of times we go into an organization, do a maturity assessment or a gap analysis, and they turn and go, no, well done, we have got processes. We've got documented processes. Oh yeah, we've got them. And it's like, okay, show me. And it's got draft, like written all over it. It's not been approved. It's not been reviewed. It's just in a Word document with draft everywhere that hasn't been approved. It's not in their document management system. It's not published. It's not known. That doesn't count. It's got to be published. It cannot just be sat there in someone's OneDrive or a Word document. It's got to be out there, published and communicated to the business. You're working on the data, but it's still untrustworthy and not complete. However, the progress has been made since the basic levels. You are getting there. You are making some traction. It's not basic. You do have some sort of controls in place, but you're not quite there yet. There's still some areas of improvement. You've got some controls in place with lifecycle management, but again, ad hoc and reactive. You've also started to look at technology integration within your AIMDB. This is another good one. Maybe you've identified security tools, license management tools, mobile device management solutions, etc., that you can integrate into your asset management database to enrich and create assets in there as well. It's starting to be known within the organization, within the business, mainly focused in on IT or technology teams where you're starting to make a name for yourself, but nothing formal or noteworthy just yet. It's not known to, the wider audience or people out there. It's mainly known within IT and tech, but you're getting there. You're starting to make some progress. Rationalized is the next step. Progress is really being made now. Process is documented in place, but not quite as optimal as needed, but it's still a lot better than before, which is really good progress. DB is getting far more accurate and reliable. You can safely say you now got 85% of your inventory coverage reporting in the AIMDB. Lifecycle management is under control. You've defined your internal lifecycle stages for your hardware assets. It's under control. It's being managed. You've worked hard on getting those other inventory sources populated in there. You're not quite there yet. There might be still some gaps, but you've done the majority bulk load of it, and you're getting data enrichments and updates within your AIMDB, and you're looking at your processes and data automation. You really are looking at that next step in your hardware asset management maturity and your ham journey, and you've come a long way. Like I said, being rationalized isn't something to turn your nose up at. It's still a very good standard to be at. It's a good level of maturity. You're basically one away from the top. So definitely something that you shouldn't just bypass and ignore. Dynamic is the most mature stage of the ham maturity. You have got full trust in your asset management database with integrations and as near to real-time data as possible. Processes and policies are regularly reviewed to ensure effectiveness, and if they're not working, you're making changes, working with the stakeholders to make sure that the process adoption is there and it's really good. Ham is an integral part of IT and the wider business. This probably is more going to be ITAM is an integral part of IT and the wider business. You've gone outside of IT and tech. You're now known in finance, procurement, legal, HR, and just generally to the end users. You've got full lifecycle management and risk management sorted out, full ham education and awareness within the business. Everyone is hyped now for ITAM, by the way. When you've got done in this and you're showing the value, you've done all your education and communication sessions, people love ham at that point. And your ham strategy has been defined and matured even further to improve services, technologies, and even support the wider business strategy. ITAM has become a seat at the table. It is smashing it. This is a really high level of maturity to aim for. It's obviously the best in class. But like I said before, you may not ever need to get to this stage if your organization doesn't demand it, or if your organization just isn't set up that way. Rationalized is another good area to be. Percent inventory coverage. You have only got 2% that is not in your AMDB, and that 2% should be known. It should be ones that you found on the procurement list from years ago, or certain DMZ, DMZ zones. It should still be known. You are absolutely flying if you get to this dynamic level of ham maturity. Or even as the slide said, because I forgot to put that, I forgot I had that bullet point. You've smashed it. Well done. Awesome job. Moving on to how do we define these maturity? How do we know where you are on your maturity journey? And that's through hardware asset management maturity assessments. These help ITAM functions or third parties assess the maturity of an ITAM function based on current ways of working, documentation, data sets, and how well ITAM is followed. This typically is something like a questionnaire, which can be run internally or externally by an external partner. External partner can help with your maturity assessments. Yep, you get the drill. External partners can help with that. Stakeholder interviews as well form part of the maturity assessment, speaking with key stakeholders, understand how ITAM works within their business and their interpretation of how ITAM works, because what you've got written down on a screen may not be what they're seeing in reality. We do full documentation reviews, everything that is published. Remember, it's got to be published. If it's in draft, it does not count. It has to be published documentation. And then data reviews of your asset management database, your CMDB, configuration management database, and all of your inventory sources, procurement sources, etc., to see where gaps are missing. Maybe you're missing warranty information, procurement information, life cycle information. Maybe you're missing 27% of your SCCM inventory isn't coming into your AMDB for whatever reason. You need to rectify that and you need to fix that. And that's what maturity assessment, along with a gap analysis, looks at. Questionnaires really focus on the people, process, and technologies. Questionnaires, if done internally by you guys, like whoever's out there, not done by a third party, it's really easy to potentially over egg or overplay how good your function is because you want to reach a certain level of maturity. Whereas when a third party comes in and do it, we know we don't have any other agendas. We just want to show what it is like, off the bat. We've done a couple of these where we've clashed with ITAM people that have been within an organization because they believe that they're further ahead than they are. We're doing it against industry best practice and they're not as far ahead as they think they are. Or they believe that they've got these processes, but when we've done stakeholder interviews, stakeholders have no idea about said processes and don't really follow them properly. So, yeah, I would always recommend getting a third party in to help with some of these questionnaires because it can be too tempting for ITAM people or IT leaders to just tick the wrong box, which might put a false sense of security as to where you really are in your ITAM maturity. We're looking at specific policy and process questions, data-specific questions, and also covers ham awareness, so ingrained, how known is hardware asset management within your organization. We then look at stakeholder interviews. Boom! Look at that. So this is when we talk to all of the key stakeholders that should be part of the hardware asset management journey. We ask them if they know about the processes, if they know about the controls, what they would do if they needed new hardware, what they'd do if their hardware wasn't working anymore, all of that kind of stuff, if they're aware of policies, processes, data sets, AMDBs, etc. Because like I said, ITAM, with all the will in the world, can document everything, get everything looking good and amazing, but then not roll it out properly, not actually speak to stakeholders, not provide webinar sessions, deep dives, etc. But when you actually go and speak to the stakeholders, you can really then understand just what kind of level of maturity ITAM and HAM really is within the organization. It's then looking at the documentation review, seeing which documents are actually published and approved and are out there. How good are they? What level of maturity are they? Are they just really basic? Are they actually quite detailed? Are there accompanying RACI matrices, work instructions, knowledge articles, standard operating procedures, all of that kind of documentation? What level of maturity is the documentation? Because then that might explain some of the answers from the stakeholder questions, and also helps us fill out the questionnaire and basically provide that benchmark on the HAM maturity. We're also looking then at the data. How accurate is your asset management database? What asset data are you actually capturing? What other data sources are you using? What checks are in place to ensure that data is accurate? Like all of the kind of really basic things that you should be doing. How populated is a procurement, financial life cycle dates? Super important for managing that life cycle. What checks are you doing to actually validate it's accurate? How are you validating that everything you're seeing in your inventory tools is coming into the AMDB? How are you sure that your procurement information that you've purchased matches your inventory information and that some haven't been not configured correctly, for example? Do the serial numbers match the models? Are there any duplicates? Duplicates is a big thing within AMDBs, where an inventory source has discovered it, a user has gone in and put the asset in there manually, but they've not formatted the serial number correctly. They've put the S at the beginning of Apple devices, or Lenovo's, they've added the dash, or HP's, they've done the long number, not the short one. And actually you end up with duplicates, which then means you might be spending more money than forecasting more money than you should be on hardware refreshing and stuff like that. So how are you validating whether you've got any duplicates within your AMDB? And finally, are the assigned users correct? Are you checking last logged in? Are you checking most frequent user against the assigned user that you have within your AMDB? And are you aiming for that 95% inventory coverage percentage? This isn't including all of the nice additional data around life cycle, just the actual core tin of the hardware. Are you covering 95% of that within your asset management database? Are your states and substates, correct? Are they the right relation? Do you have something that's retired pending disposal? Well, that's not right. It's in stock pending disposal, because you haven't retired it yet, because it's still pending that disposal. Have you got things that are listed as, in stock that aren't really in stock? That kind of thing. Making sure that those states and substates are accurate and correct. So there's a few things that you can be doing to be improving your hardware asset management maturity. First one is getting your documentation sorted out. Making sure your processes, policies are designed, documented, approved and implemented, not just in Word and pixels on a screen, but are actually documented in your process ecosystem. Hardware acceptable terms of use is also a really good thing to do. So, defining how end users should be treating and looking after that equipment. What is approved, what isn't approved. You can't watch Netflix on it. You can't install your own software, that kind of thing. Having that documentation in place. HAM strategy is another really important one to have, so that you know what the roadmap is moving forward, what the overall goals and objectives are for that hardware asset management function and what you're aiming for. Educational documents or proof that you have been doing some, education and awareness sessions. Really basic documents for onboarding is really useful as well. This is your device. Here's your basic processes in requesting a new device or requesting software, stuff like that. Any educational based knowledge articles or documents that are provided out to end users. RACI matrices, so responsible, accountable, consulted and informed for all of your HAM processes and actions that you're doing. And also having documented and defined key performance indicators, KPIs, also helps massively in maturing your ham function, because it just shows that you're in control. You're working to define standard, you're working to key performance indicators, and that you've got those defined and you're tracking them and you're managing them, etc. The next up is clean and accurate data, making sure that your AMDB is a golden, central, trusted source for all of your hardware asset management information. Increase that hardware inventory coverage within the AMDB, so showing those improvements towards that 95 to 98% and having evidences that you are at that kind of level. Automated integration with APIs or other inventory sources for data enrichment within the AMDB, another really great way of maturing and cleaning your ham data, but also your hardware asset management maturity. Regular internal audits to make sure that data remains accurate, valid, and up to date. These should be weekly audits on assets that are just coming into your AMDB, monthly audits on things like stock. You should be doing monthly audits on assets assigned to levers, ones that are due for hardware refreshing, ones that have been offline for X amount of time. All of this kind of stuff helps massively with your hardware asset management maturity, and really does give people like me, when people ask me to assess a maturity level of an organization for ham, it helps me really, boost that score up if they've got that kind of structure in place. Making sure you've got that procurement and lifecycle data as well within your AMDB, super important. Warranty expiry dates, purchase costs, PO references, who you purchased it from, scheduled retirement dates, any extended support expiries, that kind of thing. Super important, and really does help boost your maturity, and also helps boost the AMDB and ITAM in general. And of course, no duplicates within your AMDB. We do check, but yeah, we do not want to see duplicates within the asset management database, because that then shows that there aren't the controls or the audit process in place to validate, clean, and make sure that your AMDB is in the accurate state that it should be. Finally, this is I've put this in here as an additional extra, because not automated ham process doesn't always mean top levels of maturity, because the ham process that's automated may be broken or may not be effective or efficient. However, it's a really good, again, way of showing that, if you're automating a levers process, if you're automating the enrichment of data within your AMDB or whatever ham process that's in there, threshold, stock alerts, that kind of thing, it does help boost that maturity up there. But of course, the automated ham process needs to be working, and there needs to be evidence that it's actually working properly. Also, I want to see some education and awareness. That AI image is way too close to looking like me. I didn't realize I asked AI to create this and then copied and pasted it straight from there, and didn't realize that it mimics looking like me. Okay. IT stakeholder engagement and education on what ham is and how they can help. Really make it personable and approachable to all of your individual stakeholders. That's really important as well. You're asking them to do stuff, but also show how ham can help them with their overall goals, objectives, and day-to-day working life, but also really big up, how important they are to your ITAM function and the hardware asset management maturity as a whole. Wider business communications around things like hardware usage, request, returns, and optimization. And that's another really good one. I'm all for over communicating, so I create knowledge articles left, right, and center, and make them available to everyone within the business, not just in IT, not just in ITAM, so that they can see what we're doing when we're doing these internal audits on usage, what we're doing when we're doing optimization, what we're doing when we're doing the returns, etc. They can see everything. And I fully believe that, there should be that open door policy, and the end users can see everything that we're doing, and they're aware of it, and they're regularly communicated and updated if anything changes or anything significant is going on. Communication plan for regular updates, webinars, deep dives, blogs, etc. I highly recommend monthly calls with your key ITAM ham stakeholders. This helps your ITAM maturity, but also helps get ITAM's awareness out there and ITAM to achieve its own goals and objectives. You could also do blogs if you've had a really good win on a renewal for your HP devices, or you've refreshed X amount of MacBooks, or up and coming is an iPhone or a mobile phone of your choice. Hardware refresh, that's a good thing as well. But I find the blogs are dying out quite a lot. I feel like people don't read them that much, even internal ones. Knowledge articles get views, but blogs less so now. It's normally much better video guides, video communications, Teams meetings that are recorded, deep dive sessions, etc. So I personally would go along that route of communications. It's the YouTube age, I guess. So for the new generation of professionals, all about the YouTube, the video content and stuff like that. And finally, education sessions and courses as part of HR onboarding for new starters. You may have like a set list of internal courses that all internal users, maybe even externals, have to do. Get some hardware asset management, get some ITAM ones in there. You know, what you can and can't do with your hardware equipment, what you can and can't do, model-wise, specification-wise, installing your own software, you can't do that. What you should do if you lose it, that kind of thing. Make it interactive, make it fun, make it, something that they're really going to learn from and understand, and make it mandatory. There will be no easier way of getting people to understand ITAM and HAM's awareness and presence within the organization if they have to do yearly mandatory courses on what they should be doing with their hardware if they lose it, if it's stolen, hardware refresh rates, all of that kind of stuff, how to report issues and requests, etc. with it. Make a mandatory course. I mean, I've done that plenty of times, and it all just becomes second nature to people, right? It's like, well, I know straight from joining the organization what's expected of me. It just becomes second nature. It's just become something that they're always doing. Hardware asset management strategies as well, making sure you've got one that's approved and published that contributes towards, achieving that higher level of HAM maturity, if that's what you're after. If you're happy where you are, that it's about sustaining that level of HAM maturity. HAM maturity strategy, should build that clear vision for actions required to increase your maturity, provide that level of expectation of impending actions to achieve best practice and increased hardware asset management maturity. And also having a defined, published, followed HAM strategy also highlights the willingness to improve hardware asset management. I always like it when I see a roadmap or a strategy, because it means that you're thinking about the next step. You're looking to improve, you want to improve, you know the steps you need to do to improve, you know the areas that need to improve. Strategy is a really good way of doing that, or a roadmap to show that that is being thought of and that is something that the organization is pushing towards. So in conclusion, your HAM maturity is a fantastic benchmark for progression and to understand how your current function aligns with best practice. Don't just rest up on your first maturity categorization, build on those findings and aim to go up that scale. Dynamic maturity should be the goal, like we said, unless you have agreed differently with your ITAM sponsor internally, your leadership teams, etc. Have a continual service improvement plan in place, a roadmap, a strategy to keep improving and maturing your hardware asset management and your ITAM maturity levels, and rerun your maturity on a yearly basis to show the progress that you're doing, and helps you give you that focus on what your HAM strategy should be for the next 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is, and also gives you that same clarity for any ITAM roadmaps that you're building and defining as well. So that's it for our hardware asset management webinars. Yay! Hopefully you've managed to watch all of them and you've gone back and liked and subscribed and all of that good stuff. We've had some really good audience views on these ones and some feedback. So really do hope you found them useful. Well, like I said at the beginning, what I will do is bundle all of this up into one massive video that will be released over the Christmas period with all of our hardware asset management webinars that we've done in there. But this is it for HAM. I really do hope you found it useful. Next month, we start our software asset management series of webinars, which will again take us right the way through into 2026. So I really hope you've enjoyed these hardware asset management ones. Thank you so much for watching them all, liking and subscribing. If you haven't done, please make sure you do go and like and subscribe down there. Until next time, for next week's video or next month's webinar when we look at software asset management, as always, happy ITAMing. Woo!